I did that for a little while, and then I took a break entirely from the mortgage industry altogether. I had a place up in the Berkshires for a while. I went up there. I did like all the while, by the way, I'm going through a divorce, super friendly divorce, friendly still.
You can do.
Danny Archer, what's going on, sir? Welcome to the show.
What's up, Ty? How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. What's been going on in Danny Archer's world since you were on the show about a month ago?
Yeah, so with the Equine Valor Project, we just got our horses out there. The beginning of March, we've been kind of letting the herd settle in time in preparation for veterans coming out. So getting ready to so we have 3 horses out there, getting ready to get a 4th. It's been pretty crazy. Obviously, business is business. You answer your phone and it just keeps going. But excited to be here. This is a good time. You ambushed me about 40 minutes ago and said, "Hey, would you guest host today?" And I was like,
"Yeah, absolutely."
Okay.
Matt and I are having logistics issues. They're one's stuck 2 hours away, so they for sure wasn't going to make it. And then Matt Johnson's still up helping his son up in College Station. He's at Texas A&M, so he wasn't going to make it back in time. So appreciate you jumping in. It's always good to hear what's going on with the Equine Valor Project, because ever since I met you and started following your social media, like I told you when you were on the show that I was from Kentucky, so I understand like a little bit of the biologics that go on in this. I think you called it a symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic, yep.
Yeah, that is amazing. The insight and perspective and just downright knowledge that you give when you're doing those talks on your social media. So I really appreciate that.
It's it's not something that I, obviously knew anything about before, but it was something during my transition I still just stumbled on, and then started doing research, saw the positive effect with veterans, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah, it's the same thing, whether it's equine, whether it's barbecue, whether it's just getting out and
Right.
finding a tribe. We work with the Project Zero. They do overlanding and surf fishing, and they have regular modalities for therapy as well. But finding that tribe is the most important thing. And once you find the tribe, it just feels right.
It's interesting because transitioning from the military, especially from like a really long career, everybody's like really excited to get out and walk out the door, and then all of a sudden they realize they're by themselves, right? They don't have those people to the left or to the right. Everybody talks differently, and it's tough. And that's where people, it's the first time that they probably in their entire military career acknowledge that their body was hurting, maybe their brain was hurting, and now you're by yourself. And that's where, veterans start to struggle for the first time, because they just always put a fake face on. And that's whenever it's time for us to kind of lean on each other and make sure we take care of each other. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I have some pretty profound, about this being at Fort Campbell, I have some pretty profound relationships with all those air assault soldiers from Fort Campbell. I was there from late 98 until late 2009, went through chewed up a lot of dirt with them. I actually called one of my old battalion commanders about 35 minutes ago, because as I was scrolling, trying to find your phone number, Danny was right next to Daryl, or I just said his name. So I called him and
let's call Daryl right now. Let's go live with Daryl. That'll be fun.
I asked him, I said, "Sir, I'm going to get you on the podcast at some point." And he related that, there's so many things that you have to do to protect your mental health, and just getting out there and doing things. Sometimes you have to, fill it with a lot of positives so that negative doesn't get out, at least out of your mouth or body language. Or we have a licensed clinical social worker that comes on the podcast quite often, and he talks about if you're always tatted up with a mean ass look on your face, hat pulled down to where nobody can see you, and you don't interface with people, then you're going to not be able to share. You're not going to grow. And so I try to have a goofy ass look on my face, and all these modalities that we've learned from doing. I mean, this is episode 147. All these modalities we've learned for that little bit of therapy here and there. I wanted to share that with him. Just like, come on, sir, we can do some of these things. But
I saw the other day, there was a 4-star that just retired, and he doesn't know me, but like same kind of tribe, if you will, right? Unit, bloodlines and whatnot. And he posted about struggling, and I was reading the comments, and everybody's like, hey, congratulations, thank you for your service and all that stuff. And he wasn't looking for that. He was actually exposing himself like, hey, I'm struggling a little bit here. I've heard people talk about it, but now I'm living it. I actually shot him a message like, hey, sir, anytime you want to talk, like this is kind of what I do. Like there's no preparation for this. People say that, but then whenever all of a sudden it's right up in your face and it's you, there's no preparation. And so, yeah, I sent him a whole thing, and he sent me this like message like, man, seriously, thank you. Like this means more than you can imagine. And because out of nowhere, right? There's no agenda. I just want, hey, look, man, you need a shoulder? I got one for you. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, the bonds last forever, and it's like I've not spoken to this man for probably at least a decade. Ooh. And as soon as he picked up the phone, I recognized that voice from hearing it on the radio, and everything else is a pretty good feeling. But like Al always says at the end of the show, make it a point to call that person that you not talk to, and when I knew that Matt and Al were going to be here, I called a couple people to tell them, I need a co-host, and Danny was the first person I called, because I remember when he was on the show, you said, hey, if you ever need a co-host, we'll take this bitch over or something.
I didn't really think you were going to call though. Like, this is a little.
Now
that here I am though. Now I'm in. I love it. I want to be here all the time now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, it's always fun to talk to veterans. It's great to build those bonds and kind of relive some of that tribal stuff that we talked about. But today we're going to be talking with a veteran named Matt Jablonski. Got his thing right here. He's an Air Force veteran, mortgage loan officer, and we're going to talk about the Project 87. It's a thing that he's working on to get veterans what they need. I don't want to give it away. So without further ado, Matt Jablonski. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, Ty. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
hey,
sir.
Danny.
What's up, Matt? How you doing, buddy? It's been weird. There you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just for the audience here, Matt, explain how you know Danny Archer.
So I am part of the Victor Alpha group at CrossCountry Mortgage. It's an all-veteran mortgage origination team, and Danny is one of the top loan officers on our team.
Very nice. Appreciate that very much. Well, Matt, the way we kind of want to always get things started is we kind of want to know where you grew up, what it was like growing up, and a little bit about your siblings and parents. What was it like for you growing up?
So I didn't know you were from Houston. I just heard you say that. I'm a New York guy. I was born in New York, but in 4th grade, I did move to Houston with mom, dad, brother, sister. And I was in Houston 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Have super, super fond memories of Houston. I think about it all the time. I have a really twisted, sick, long-term memory. I can't remember what happened yesterday, but I can remember stuff from 4th and 5th grade. It's Houston is on my mind a lot.
Yeah, I can identify with not remembering shit from last week, but remember what happened 23 years ago with certain people from the military. Do you remember growing up going to the rodeo and all that kind of fun stuff?
I thought about it today because I thought you'd ask me about growing up, but I go to the Astrodome, Houston Livestock and Rodeo Show, and I can still remember the beer guy. He used to say, I'm going to get in trouble for this, maybe. No, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm going to look like a jerk. But he used to go, it's cold beer. Cold as foam in the dome. Why stand in line when you can buy mine?
I am clipping that. That's going to go viral right there. There's so many stories. Like I've been here for 8 years. You hear so many stories about Astro World. I grew up watching the Atlanta Braves. So when they would play the Houston Astros, when they were in the NL, you would hear about the 8th wonder of the world, and then you get here and see it and Reliant Park or Energy Stadium, whatever they're calling it now, just dwarfs it. So,
oh yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it looked huge back then. But yeah, I lived in Houston like in the early like 82, 83, 84, 80, maybe a little 85. Like I'm still a Houston Rockets fan. I've lived in New York most of my life. I met Akeem in the grocery store when I was in 4th grade. So I still have a little piece of Houston through the Rockets.
That's when they were in the Summit, right?
They were in the Summit. Yep.
Summit. Yeah.
This was like the height of breakdancing. We used to go to the roller rink on Friday nights, and people bring their own cardboard and do their backspins and stuff.
If you start popping and locking right now, I know we're.
I can't do it.
No? Okay. All right. Guys.
I can pop and lock the shit out of it. I'm guaranteed that.
Well, what kind of sports and hobbies did you have growing up here in Houston?
I did play soccer, most of the time that I was in Houston. I loved soccer back then. It was a blip. What kind of hobbies? I'm thinking about this. This wasn't a hobby. This wasn't a regular thing, but my mom and dad had these friends, Mike and Betsy. Mike just passed away not that long ago. And I think when I might have been in 5th grade, my brother in 4th grade, my sister was she's 4 years younger than me. And he took us out to the bayou, and he had a whole bunch of guns, and he lined up all these beer bottles, and he let us, I think we shot a 44 and a sawed-off shotgun. And I don't think I shot a gun between then and when I was in basic training in the Air Force, but I remember that. Houston, when I was younger, was touch football, in the schoolyard all summer long. It was riding bikes everywhere. Me and my brother used to go in the woods, and we had BB guns. We'd shoot snakes in the woods, fishing. It was a good time.
That sounds like a good childhood. These days, I have a teenager now, and then a bunch of adult kids. They play video games and stay at home. I was continually outside, made to be outside. And I think some of these kids these days need to touch some grass.
Yep.
And kids nowadays don't know about a BB gun war.
Yeah.
Oh, I was out with my friends, and I shot my BB gun into a lake, and I didn't know that it was not going to go into the water, and it skimmed off the top and it hit him in the chest. And I was terrified, and he was okay, but he definitely wanted to shoot his BB gun back at me, and I had to peel out of there with my BMX. It was a pretty crazy day.
the BMX, you shoot your eye out, kid. I remember my first time shooting pellets. I wasn't allowed to pump the pellet more than once, so I pumped it once and then shot a telephone pole. Lo and behold, that pellet came right back at me and almost hit me right in the face. But
I think that has to happen to everybody. My first BB gun, there was a grasshopper, and we had like a little wooden door that goes underneath our crawl space, and it was like there. And I was a little kid, and I'm like, oh, and I got like the Daisy Duke kind of, it was the Daisy fake 12 pump, and there was a grasshopper on it. And I'm like, oh, I'm shooting that thing. Same exact thing. When it comes right back, hits me right in the face. I was like, holy shit, I just did the Christmas Story, like.
Yep.
You'll shoot your eye out. Yeah. All right. So at, early age, out shooting, ricocheting BBs off ponds, playing sports all the time. What kind of drove you to what school did you want to go to? Did you go to college before?
I went to college after I was in here. Yeah.
When did you start getting the inspiration that you knew that you were going to join the military?
So when I was in high school, I was definitely the class clown. I got decent grades, but I always say that I was just mature enough to realize I was too immature to go directly to college. So I was walking through the hall one day. My teachers liked me outside of the classroom. Just when I got inside of the classroom, they were like, this guy's a nightmare. Because not disrespectful or anything, just talking to everybody and distracting people. So I was walking in the hallway, and there was an Air Force recruiter in the hallway, and he started talking to me, and I wasn't paying much attention. And then he said, hey, if you take the ASVAB test, you get to miss class. You get an excused absence. So I signed up for the ASVAB test and I did really good on it. And that was like, I think I was in 11th grade. That was 91. It was in the middle of Desert Storm. So people were talking about it, and, there was a lot of patriotism at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to join the Air Force. And I joined the Air Force.
And then did you have any inkling of what you wanted to do in the Air Force, or did you just want to, you just got caught in a conversation and before you knew it, the recruiter had you?
Before I knew it, the recruiter had me. I almost changed my mind. I got cold feet for a little while there. I was going to go in with a friend of mine, this guy, Jimmy. My friends were giving us, our Top Gun names because we were going into the Air Force, and Jimmy backed out. So I started thinking about backing out, and I was like, maybe I'll just go into the Air Guard or something. And then my dad wouldn't talk to me for like a month. He was so upset with me. So, I kind of went in because, well, that was a big part of it, a lot of pressure. But in hindsight, honestly, I always say I got way more out of the Air Force than the Air Force ever got out of me. I grew up, by the time I got out, I was very ready for school, and it was a whole different experience than high school was. I was a little more mature. I wanted to learn, and that would have never happened if I didn't go to the Air Force first.
So ultimately, what MOS did you pick, or rate did you pick in the Air Force, and how did that career go?
So I went to tech school down in Keesler to be a tech controller. I was troubleshooting transatlantic circuitry, big patch panels, moving things around, look like, from the 50s. But when I got my assignment, they put me in satellite communications. They pulled from like 3 other jobs. And I got my top secret clearance. I got stationed at Andrews, and I worked at this receiver site in the middle of nowhere in the woods out in Maryland. And I was monitoring satellites. I was basically, I would sign myself into a top secret vault, punch in a code, go in the back room. And on my way to from Andrews to Brandywine, I'd pick up a top secret envelope at the base comm center, and I'd get there and I'd open it, and it was just requests for channels on a satellite, and I had to decide, which request had a higher priority, and assign people to frequencies on the satellite. Sometimes it was White House communications. Sometimes, it was for important things, and sometimes it was a guy running tests in Fort Lee, New Jersey. So it was pretty interesting, but mostly, honestly, my job took 10, 15 minutes a night, and it was a lot more fun than work. Danny, you probably can't relate being an Army vet doing what you did. I'm holding back a little bit, but there was
as you should. It sounds like
yeah.
I got secret.
No, not secret stuff.
I got the decoding ring, and I had to decode it with my,
No, just like
and then the UFO came and landed.
No, it was more like playing spades and playing John Madden football and silly stuff.
All the silly stuff is the good stuff. I remember playing spades while I deployed. Like
we had Call of Duty.
Yeah, I never got to experience any cool assignments like that where you're decoding stuff. I came in at a time where we were just.
He was in MIB. That was
deploy. Yeah.
I met some really, really crazy characters in a short period of time while I was there. It was, people I'll never forget, people that I still tell stories about.
I would be curious to see what the personality traits they wanted for that specific job.
I don't know.
They know. They know.
Matt Duhan says 100% sure he worked with aliens.
Yeah, guaranteed. And then he got flashed 42 times. He has no idea.
No, my boss, Randy, he used to, this was an antenna field as far as you can see. And he's like, yo, Jablonski, you're coming out. You're going to build me a driving range today. And I'm, building platforms and digging holes in the ground and building a driving range in the middle of this antenna field. It was not what I expected, but again, I met a lot of cool people. I grew up. It was eye-opening for an 18, 19-year-old kid.
So 18, 19 years old in the Air Force doing some cool stuff. Overall, I know, how long did you spend in the Air Force overall?
So this is something that I didn't used to talk about. And I'm going to tell Danny about this for the first time. I had a hard time. I talked to Pat and Sherry, who run our team, about this. I got out of the Air Force earlier than I was supposed to. I did 2 years in the Air Force, and this was like early 90s. People were, it was pretty easy to get out. Me and some friends were starting a company back then. It was like one of the first fantasy sports webs. It wasn't even a website at the time. This was like 1994. So there were, people weren't really quite online at the time. We started something called Wall Street Sports down in Greenville, South Carolina. A good friend of mine, the guy Jimmy that was supposed to join the Air Force with me, him and his brother started it down there. And we were convinced we were going to, have this biggest thing ever. And I pushed and pushed, and they let me out. I got an honorable discharge. But I felt guilt about not finishing my 4 years since then. And I've always tried to figure out how to fix that, how to make up for that. And honestly, like the path that I've been down just this last year and joining the team, this team that I'm on now, this all veteran team, has a lot to do with kind of making amends for me, because I think I'm in a spot now where I can make an impact on a lot of people. I remember what it was like to be 18, 19 years old in the Air Force, and we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't know what to do with our money. And I'm not, you said I was a loan originator. I was for 15 years. I'm not originating anymore, but I'm supporting the team and I'm helping the team grow. I'm building partnerships with outside organizations. And if I can have an impact on, and we'll get to, you brought up Project 87 before, and this all ties together. If I can have an impact on, especially, younger soldiers and airmen, that will help me on some level with all of that guilt that I felt from way back then.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny, if you got something.
No. First of all, you should never feel guilty about your own path, right? We each have our own journey. Some crazier than others, but like in the end, life is kind of a self-correcting ship. You'll come back. Now you make your impact. You don't worry about that. Nobody gives a shit about that. It was a weird time in the military in the mid 90s, post Desert Storm, Somalia. You know what I mean? Like pre 9/11. Yep. Nah, stuff that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel any guilt at all. Like
now you just make a fucking impact. That's the deal now. Now you make your impact.
Yep.
Yeah. So you get out of the Air Force, and so you're that you're going to start a company. So what was your transition out of the military like? What was that experience like for you?
It was sudden. I got in the car. I drove from Andrews in DC down to Greenville, South Carolina. It was, 3 dudes in an apartment. We had like $10,000 to start this company. Again, like mostly pre-internet. This is 1994, the summer, like crazy summer. If you remember, that was the summer of OJ.
Yeah.
I'm living with 2 Knicks fans, and I'm a Houston Rockets fan from New York, and it's Knicks Rockets in the championship. I drove with one of the guys in the company from Greenville to Detroit. We broke down in I think you said you're from Kentucky. I broke down in Kentucky in the middle of the night on my way to a baseball card show to talk about this product that we came up with. And we didn't have that much money. We slept on the pool furniture. We hopped the fence and slept on the pool furniture. Got the truck fixed in the morning, drove up to Detroit, and get into our hotel room. We turn on the TV and to watch the Knicks Rockets, and they interrupt in the middle of it, and they're chasing OJ down the highway.
It's crazy the milestones that you remember distinctly. Everybody knows where they were for 9/11. I remember coming to my parents' house when OJ was driving the Bronco, and yeah. So what was this company that you transitioned out of for the first place?
So it was called Wall Street Sports. It was a simulated stock market, and you could buy and sell shares of athletes based on performance, based on supply and demand. And basically, I get to Greenville, and we're, trying to run with this. And I'm still a kid, I think, in my mind, in some ways, even though I said I grew up a lot in that couple of years there. We get a call from the SEC. And they shut us down, cease and desist, because they said we had way too much control over, over the direction that the values of these stocks can go. So, I felt so bad about it and weird about it, because I literally left the Air Force to do this, and it was supposed to be amazing. The story gets even more interesting, though. I leave. I move up to New York. I start going to school. I had a job. I was the entertainment at a nursing home. I used to sing to the old folks at a nursing home, do all kinds of fake murder trials, all kinds of stuff at the nursing home. It was probably one of the most fun jobs that I ever had. But while I'm in school, these guys start the company back up as Wall Street Sports. Eventually, they merged with a company called Sandbox.com. And now the internet's kind of going pretty good. Sandbox becomes the number one fantasy sports website in the world for a year or so back then. And it's still my buddy Jimmy and his brother Larry. And I'm not part of it. I'm up in New York going to school. And at some point in time, I moved down to Virginia. They're in Reston, Virginia, and I move in with Jimmy, and he's working, for this company, and they have a deal on the table. I think they were going to sell to Lycos, and it was like for $270 million, something like that. And then that fell through, and then CBS Sportsline was going to buy them for about half, like 140, and that fell through. I think they ended up selling the company for like $2.7 million, which was not great compared to what was on the table. There was like a .com bust in, I forget what, mid 90s, later 90s or something like that. And so the concept was good. People liked it. And, after the SEC shut them down back then, I didn't think they would regroup and do what they ended up doing. But they came really, really close to doing some amazing things.
Yeah, there could be let me take you off there. There could be a whole podcast. I wrote down murder trials for old people at nursing homes. If you need role players, Danny Archer just said he would do it, and I will do it. I'll be Edwin Drood. We'll let the audience pick who the killer is going to be, and we'll act that shit out.
I had a greatest hits album. My boss was an amazing pianist, and I sang. I wasn't good. You could hear. It was an old tape recorder. You could hear some of the ladies booing in the background, but they still got a kick out of it. It was a great job.
I love that. I'll have to ask you about that offline. But all right. So SEC steps in, stops this company. You're feeling some type of way because you got out of the Air Force in order to start this company. What now? What happens now? So
I decide that I want to pursue journalism. I wanted to be a sports writer when I was a little kid. From as far back as I can remember, I used to listen to sports radio, under the covers, at night when my parents told me to go to bed. I wanted to write about the New York Yankees. So I went to school for journalism, or went to St. John's in New York City in Queens. I became the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper at St. John's. I got hired at Newsday I think my senior year, my last year, probably with about a year left at St. John's, and they let me cover high school sports, college sports, and my dreams sort of started coming true. And I did that for 2.5 years. But when they hired you out of college like that, they basically gave you a job where you were probably working 40 hours a week. You were getting paid for 27. That was a cutoff for benefits. And then they kind of laid you off in the summer, and they paid you for the summer while you were laid off to make up for it. So I was a little bit older than the normal college graduate, because I did those couple of years in the Air Force. And I'm like, all right, I'm 25, 26. I can't really live my life without medical insurance. So my buddy from the Air Force, this guy, Dave, was running a network operations center for a satellite company down in Virginia. And, I got to talking to him, and I was like, I love what I'm doing. I want to be a writer, but I got to grow up. I need a real career. I need medical insurance. And he's like, come down here and work for me. So I went down, and I was working in I was troubleshooting, people that ran all of their communications over satellite, the United States Postal Service, Hollywood Video, I think the Holiday Inn. They ran everything on satellite. So there'd be guys on the roof in California that would call in and say, hey, and this is the stuff I learned in the Air Force. My satellite's down. I don't know what's going on. And so I did that for a while, and they found out that I had a degree in journalism. I was writing, and they were like, hey, do you want to write the troubleshooting manuals for our satellite systems? And it was a raise. So I said yes, but they were like 80-page manuals, step by step by step. It was the most boring job I could possibly imagine. So I did that for a little bit. And then I saw an advertisement for a job as a newspaper reporter, not a great salary, but full benefits, covering the space and satellite industry on Capitol Hill in DC. And I lived like in Reston at the time. I was, a train ride away. So I'm like, all right, I'm, got the Air Force experience in the satellite industry. I work for a satellite company. I have a journalism degree. I wanted to be a journalist. And now there's this job that opens up where I'm covering space launches, covering the satellite industry. So I did that for a little while in DC. I think the best story that I have from doing that job, I think it was my first day getting an assignment on Capitol Hill, and I didn't know my way around. And I found the building finally, and I was a little bit late, and it was a hearing on NASA, something NASA was doing. I can't remember exactly, but there's these huge doors in the Capitol buildings, and they were like thick wooden doors. And I opened it, and it was like, and I look in, and it was John McCain speaking, and he looked at me like I just interrupted his speech right in the middle of it. He was not happy with me.
That's cool as hell. Matt Duhon told me you were an intriguing dude and that I would love talking to you. And I really enjoyed talking to you on the phone when we were kind of doing the pre stuff. But man, the width and breadth of your experience as a human being is crazy. Like you've had a vast experience of growing up and being a little bit feral, playing sports, and then now you're, tasking satellites back in the old days. And oh my goodness, this is amazing.
I just wish you would have go, excuse me, I'm looking for the bathroom.
Yeah,
I really have to go. Just keep dragging it out. Make it super uncomfortable.
I sat down, took my seat, took my notes, wrote a story about it. Didn't expect to talk about John McCain at all, but a friend of mine worked on John McCain's tour years ago when he was running for president, and he was a speechwriter. I don't know if it's true or not. The guy told me, he said, he told me to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I said, no, I'm a speechwriter. I'm not going to make you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And he's like, Sean, make me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or you're off the tour. He goes, I'm not doing it. Next stop, Sean was off the tour.
Yeah. Well, this principle, I'm not sure I would make somebody a peanut butter and jelly sandwich either if I was a journalist or speechwriter. But I mean, that's kind of weird having that experience like that. That just gives me the ickies that happens. Cause
Yeah.
I don't, that's a weird story. I don't know how I would react either. But all right. So yeah, we didn't think about, we'd be talking about John McCain. So what led you to initially becoming a mortgage loan officer?
So I moved to New York. I was that job in DC as a reporter. I was making $30,000. I moved to New York. I was going to start a company, like a publishing company, with a friend of mine up here who's a journalist. I got to New York. I was engaged at the time, and as soon as I got there, the guy decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm painting with my cousin on the side, looking for a job. And I found another job as a newspaper reporter covering local politics up here in Westchester County. And I did that for a while. And then I found out we were having a baby, and I was like, I can't raise a family on a newspaper reporter salary. It's impossible. So I met this girl when I was in 8th grade. She was in 7th grade in the Poconos, family vacation. And we stayed friends all through high school, through college. And she's like, called me once. She's like, what are you doing? And I told her, we're having a baby. I got to find a new job. And she's like, oh, Peter works at Bank of New York. He's in the mortgage business. He's like a year and a half in and he's doing great. You should talk to him. This is her husband. And he talked to me. And at first they told me there was a hiring freeze, but then, they called me back and I started at Bank of New York. This like, I don't know, 2002, 2003. And I was rookie of the year as a loan originator, my first year at Bank of New York. And it was really out of obligation at the time. I knew, I was starting a family and I had to do something different.
Right. So rookie of the year. Huh? So you just hit the ground running there too. How fulfilling was that job once you were rookie of the year? How long were you originating initially? I
originated for 15 years. Up to 2018 was my last year originating. And it's a flexible job. You kind of make your own hours. You're always on. The phone's always ringing. So you could be on vacation and you see your phone ring and you're like, oh my God, I can't not take that call. So my girls never needed anything. I did well. I helped a lot of people become homeowners. I was patient with them. It was fulfilling in that way. I felt very appreciated by my clients. It was rewarding to do the job for them, but it was also rewarding because I didn't have to struggle the way that I would have if I stayed a newspaper reporter.
Right. When you were in the newspaper, did you build those bonds with people? Because I've found that the thing that I'd never originated when I was in the mortgage industry either. We did nationwide classes and things like that, but being able to help veterans or first responders or anybody that's able to use their VA loan or get a mortgage in the first place, to help them buy their first home, to see, them PCS and get into a new home as a veteran and or a active duty military, that fulfillment for me was amazing. So the job that you did and doing it for 15 years, that's beautiful because getting out of the military, I had only bought one house before, and buying the house, transitioning out of the military, first time using the VA loan, that was very difficult. I know we'll get to CrossCountry in a minute, but how many loan companies did you work for, and what was your experience with some of those? as far as like going through 2008 and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I started at Bank of New York. And then at some point, maybe 3-4 years into it, I had no choice. I think Chase bought BNY or some of the assets, and a group of us, 12, 13 of us, went over to Chase. We didn't have to, but we went there. I knew I didn't like it right away. It was too big, too corporate, too much red tape. It wasn't my thing. Maybe it's different now. And I went to a company called Mortgage Master. I was there for 7 years. They sold at the very end to Loan Depot, which is a big competitor of ours right now. I was there for the last 6 months at Loan Depot, and then my business started trending toward I'm in New York, so I was doing a lot of jumbo business, New York City, big condo business, and I needed to be. Sometimes the banks are better at the super jumbo kind of stuff. So I went to a bank in the city, and I was focusing on that for a little bit. I was at Citizens for the last 3 years.
Gotcha. And then, so what made you decide to stop originating and then come on to CrossCountry to do what you do now?
So there was a stop in between. I stopped. I definitely. I burned out. There were a lot of things at work that were not great for me in the moment. I burned out, and I was on the train heading into New York City to sit with probably my top referral source in the city at the time. Was a team at Douglas Elliman, and I sketched out a job. I made up a job on the train ride down, and I pitched it to them, knowing if they didn't like the idea, they would kind of have an inkling that I was thinking about getting out of the mortgage industry. And I was a little worried that, how they might take that, but I pitched the job. I pitched a job where I was, I think I was the mortgage finance director for the team. And basically I was the personal advocate for every single one of their clients. I would shop for rate for them. I would translate. I would hold the lender accountable. I basically put myself in their shoes. And I said, if I was in your position, knowing what I know about the mortgage industry and who's good at what, this is where I would get my loan from. And then, there's kind of ways to squeeze places and make sure your client's getting the best deal. And it was a hit. They hired me to do it. It worked exactly the way that it was supposed to work. Nobody else had a role like that in the industry. So it was, my friend tells me not to say super unique. It's either unique or not unique. So it was unique, and it was going great, but we were in New York City, and this is 2018, 2019, 2020, and then COVID hits, and nobody's buying in New York City. Everybody's moving out of New York City, and my income depended on that team closing business, and they just weren't closing business at the clip they were used to closing. So what started out as a really cool idea, somebody else can pick up and run with it if they want. It worked. I had to stop because there just weren't enough deals. At that moment, my friends that I started with way back at Bank of New York had just taken a whole team, and they went to CrossCountry Mortgage, and they called me and they wanted me to come back and originate. And I still wasn't up to originating at the time. And they were like, come recruit for us. And I was like, but I've never recruited before. And they're like, yeah, but you speak the language, you know a lot of people. So I went over to them at CrossCountry. For a little while, I worked for both companies. Eventually, I just eased my way over to CrossCountry, and I was recruiting. And I remember I went to Citizens because one of the big reasons is I wanted to be competitive in the jumbo market, but they had a relationship at the time with Douglas Elliman. They were like a preferred lender, and loan officers wanted to go there because they would put you in a real estate office, and you'd have access to all these real estate offices, and these agents referring you business. So when I got to cross country, I was like, man, if I can get a relationship like that, I'd be able to recruit a whole lot easier. I remember what I felt like, and took a little doing, but I met a bunch of people at Douglas Elliman when I was there, and I was able to kind of wrestle that relationship away. And there was a recruiting boom. I think 25 people came over shortly thereafter. There were 63 offices in New York that we had to service. So I did that for a while. It was relationships like that come with a cost. And it was tricky because that cost was based on how things were going business-wise for the last couple of years. And then maybe 3 months after, rates went from like, high threes to 6%. And so I'm a hero for making the relationship happen and making, adding to the sales team. But then everybody's volume goes down 75, 80%. And, the deals from having a relationship, I mean, they can't automatically send you deals, but you develop relationships and they get to trusting people. And it's not that wasn't happening. There just weren't deals. Everybody's business was down 75, 80% when the rate shot up like that. So, I sort of changed from hero to something close to zero, maybe, because, now they're kind of saddled with this expensive relationship and the deals aren't coming in. It didn't turn out the way that it was supposed to turn out. So, I did that for a little while, and then I took a break entirely from the mortgage industry altogether. I had a place up in the Berkshires for a while. I went up there. I did, like, all the while, by the way, I'm going through a divorce. It's super friendly divorce, friendly still. But I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I really didn't know what I was going to do in that moment. I moved to where I'm at now. I'm in Beacon, New York. It's about an hour and 20 minutes north of New York City, right on the Hudson River. Cool little town, really cool little town. I met everybody in the town, and I meet a guy watching a soccer game. I'm a big Premier League English soccer fan, and I'm an Arsenal fan. He's an Arsenal fan. We're watching, and I'm thinking about, I want to open a sports bar. I'm a sports nut, sports writer, and I heard him talking about it, and I walked up and talked to him about it. We became really good friends. We made an offer on a sports bar here in Beacon. We got outbid. And then a month or two later, this guy, his name's Marco, I'm friends with him still. He says, hey, I have an opportunity to open a restaurant right outside the gates of West Point, which is like 30 minutes from me. Oh, Marco's chiming in. He's watching. And I'm not in food and beverage. Marco is. He owns the Hudson Valley Food Hall and the Roosevelt Cocktail Bar here in Beacon. And we're like, this is going to be I want to give it a try. I'm going to try my hand at the restaurant business. So it's 100-year-old building. As soon as I walk out the building, I look to my left, I can see the main gates of West Point. Right across the street is the visitor center. It is a much tougher industry than I ever could have imagined. The people, it was empty for a couple of years, the space. My landlord is the West Point Association of Graduates. They've been amazing to us. But it's an old, I feel bad saying it, but it's kind of a beat up old town, and they're in competition with Annapolis. They're in competition with Colorado Springs, the other academies. And if you're basing it on the surrounding town, it's not going to win. So AOG, the Association of Graduates, is doing everything they can to make the neighborhood as good as possible. They have a longer term plan, but they don't want empty buildings. So they gave us a great lease. We go in. The town's happy that we're up and running. I'm doing 200 smash burgers a week to the football team. Soccer team's ordering from us. Army swimming, Army lacrosse. All the teams are ordering from us, and we're thinking this is going to go great. But 100-year-old building, every single week something breaks in the building, and every time it breaks, it's super expensive, and it means you don't make that much money in the restaurant business, if any money at all. So it was upsetting for a while because I put a lot of time, effort, and energy into the restaurant and money into the restaurant. And I was like, oh, this is going to be not that great of an experience, maybe even a disaster. So at this point, I got to get my mortgage license back. I got to do something, right? So I apply for my mortgage license. I go back to CrossCountry. I'm going to recruit for this other small team. And I have the idea. I go, if I have this relationship with West Point, I know the sports teams, I know AOG, they're my landlord. I'm going to come up with like a program to educate the cadets. And I call my contact there and I send like an outline, and she's like, oh man, this is great. But other people ask us about this too. And we're really tight, with this West Point grad, that's a big time VA writer or a VA loan originator in the country. His name is Patton Gade. And I didn't know Patton Gade at the time. And I looked him up, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, all right, the next best thing is I can recruit this guy. I think he worked at U Mortgage or something. Danny was probably over there with him. And she puts me in touch with Patton. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to try to recruit this guy to CrossCountry. And I call him, and he picks up the phone, and he goes, you're too late. And I go, what do you mean you're too late? He goes, I signed a letter of intent this morning. I'm coming to CrossCountry. So we have that conversation. We set up another call. His wife, Sherry, runs the team, puts the infrastructure together, hires the people. I have a couple of calls with Pat and Sherry, and they're like, hey, we want to offer you a job. So we kind of went back and forth, like figuring out exactly what I would do if I was going to originate. And they really wanted me to be in a strategic position to help grow the team, help build partnerships. And we kind of whittled something together. And, so all of the difficult stuff, the time and effort and the money that I put into the restaurant, I kind of chalk it up to, I never would have been put in this position where I really, really love the job. And it circles all the way back to what I talked about before. Like, I've always been looking for a way to sort of deal with me leaving the Air Force early. And I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. And it sort of just came together. And that was, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago.
I feel guilty now with all the shit you've done. Like you grew up in Houston, joined the military, had an Air Force career, got out, did all kinds of different things, opened a restaurant within sightseeing of the front gate of West Point. Like you talk about some relationships. Does your brain always running? Does it ever slow down? Like you're always thinking ideas, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I tell my friends and my girlfriend I have a weird brain.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I like you this much more now because I had a real problem with you being in the Air Force. I'm kidding. That's a good story, dude. I like hearing this stuff because honestly, this is fun.
Yeah. So this is kind of the part of the show where I wanted to get to. Like, we talk about the relationships. I have a lot of relationships with people that work at Loan Depot, work at U Mortgage, CrossCountry, Mutual of Omaha. Some great people mentored me when, MLOs that were mentoring me. And this is the part where I'm going to kind of turn it over to Danny. And you guys start talking about what you're doing now with CrossCountry Mortgage, and we'll get into Project 87 organically, however you want to do it. But I do want to talk about Project 87. Go ahead, Danny.
All right, so it's good because you talked about how you got at least introduced to the team and what the Victor Alpha Group is. Now I want to ask you specifically, what do you think makes this team unique from any other lending team in the nation?
So right now, I mean, coming at it from my perspective, as most recently as a recruiter, when you recruit in this industry, you're poaching other seasoned not veteran military veterans, but veterans of the mortgage industry. You're trying to convince them to come to your company because it's better, that maybe there's a sign-on bonus. Maybe you're telling them operations are better. What this team does, we take veterans or sometimes active duty members of the military. I'm trying to open up channels now for military spouses, for first responders. We take people that have no experience whatsoever in the mortgage business, and we teach them how to be a really good loan officer. And before I talk to anybody, Patton says, Matt, here's a starting point. Here's what I really care about. Make sure they're trying to figure out if they're a really good person. But see if they have a network, a military network that they can tap into. We want to change the lives of veterans and people in the military. And we think that they have the best chance to succeed if they are still attached to the military community on some level. So again, my job now, I used to go out and try to poach people from other companies. And now I'm talking to veterans. I'm going to military job fairs. I'm talking to them about the curriculum we have in place, our head trainer that teaches you how to take a job that you can make such an amazing impact on somebody's life, but still earn a really, really great living. So, all of these people on the team, I'm talking about the loan officers now. There's people on the leadership team that are super, super talented. Like you brought up Matt Duhan before, and his I think you called him a mad scientist. That's a perfect description for that guy. He's like, if you can think it, Matt Jablonski, Matt Duhan, I can create it on a computer. So, the level of people that are on the team, we have a head trainer. His name is Alan. He was an underwriter for years. He's great. We have the sales manager has an MBA. He's a tough guy. He's, super smart. I've been through a million sales calls before, and he just comes prepared with different things every single day. We have a great ops team. So across the board, it's just a different approach. Like, let's go find amazing veterans, military spouses, and let's teach them how to do the job so they can do well for themselves and they can make a really, really big impact on the military community. So it's just a breath of fresh air for me, and it's what I needed personally. And I'm so happy to be part of the team.
So that's a good lead in, because my next question was going, what do you think this team's why is?
What is the team's why? I just described my own why, and I think, most of the people on the team, I think we have a lot of family people on the team. So, individually their why is, their family, but I do think that everybody still feels that connection. People on our team can go out and write conventional mortgages. They can go out and write FHA mortgages, but that's not what we focus on every single day. It's like, how do we become the best VA mortgage specialists in the country so we can help other people? I was at it was called employing the U.S. military, something like that, in New York City a couple of weeks ago. And I met this woman on a panel about military spouses, and she called me, or I left her a message. She called me back last week, and we were talking, and she's like, Matt, a lot of these spouses you're trying to hire, the enlisted, they're on food stamps. They don't make a lot of money. And, if you can find a job for them, for the spouse, you're having an amazing impact. And if you can show these people how to use their BAH, how to become a homeowner, how to build equity, how to build wealth, you're changing their lives. And I think everybody on this team understands that. And I think it's okay to have a job where you can do well and earn a really, really nice living. You don't have to feel guilty about that, especially if you're having a huge impact on people's lives when they aren't always in the best position to succeed financially.
No, I honestly, for me, one of the big parts that I truly enjoy about the team is, I see it as an extension of veteran care, because, that loss of purpose, loss of formation, all those things that veterans struggle with, that's really what kind of drew me into this business. And then what it could be, putting guys back into, a position, back into a formation with like-minded individuals, and just give them the task to find veterans and families and coach, teach, mentor them through the biggest purchase of their life.
Yep.
And if you can, if you need more, like most of the people on the team were senior people, and have been leaders and have mentored veterans, or soldiers throughout their careers. And this is just mission planning. Honestly, it's here you are, here's where you want to go, what obstacles are in the way, what route are we going to take, and how quickly do we need to get there.
And we have people from every branch other than Space Force. We have Marines, Coast Guard. I think I'm the first Air Force person, Army, Navy. We have 4 West Point grads. We have a Naval Academy grad. My latest recruit was a colonel in the Navy. He's a Naval Academy grad. He has a degree in aeronautical engineering. He was a Navy pilot. So, we have enlisted, we have officers, we have special forces guys. We have a little bit of everything. It's pretty amazing.
So that is a good tee up. I love this. So now we've touched on it a little bit, because, I know we're kind of wanting to unleash this, but it kind of leads into kind of the future of the team. Tell everybody about Project 87.
So the best way to explain it, the fastest way to explain it is a statistic that was mind-blowing to me. 87% of veterans and service members never, ever use the VA mortgage benefit that they earned. I'm going to stop there for a second. Danny, you knew that statistic, right?
Well, I didn't know it was that high until you actually threw the number out there. Like, honestly, like it makes sense, because I have an assumption, but I'd be curious, because you've been in the business a lot longer. Why do you think that is? So
in 2023, Congress passed the VA Loan Awareness Act. They recognize that it's an underutilized benefit. And the only thing that really came from that Awareness Act was there's an extra disclosure. If you mark on a mortgage application that you're a veteran and you're not applying for a VA loan, there's an extra disclosure in there that says, hey, you should check to see if you're eligible for a VA loan. But it hasn't really moved the needle. So if you're asking me why utilization is that low, and let me give you a backdrop. VA loan was created as part of the GI Bill in 1944 during World War II. And utilization was probably close to 50% in the 40s and 50s. The VA loan helped create the middle class in America. There were entire towns, but Levittown in Long Island, everybody got a VA loan to get their house, out there. VA loan at some point, like there were more VA loans written and conventional than FHA by a lot. Everybody blames it right now on awareness and education. And when I first started talking, we were calling it Project 13 when we first started, because only 13% used it. Corporate wanted us to switch to 87 because there were too many things close to Project 13, but the math still works. But everybody blames it on lack of awareness and not enough education to the active duty members of the military. They don't understand what's available to them, and that is part of the equation. It really, really is. But I'm going to tell you guys a story, and I don't think it's true of every part of the country. We have one of our first New York guys coming onto the team. My brother-in-law is just joined the team about 2 weeks ago, last Monday. His name is Jesse. And our ops team doesn't do a lot of New York deals. And New York's a quirky state across the board, no matter what you're whether it's me getting the liquor license at the bar or me getting my mortgage license in New York or closings. So our head of ops, Jenny, calls me and she says, "Hey, do you know anybody that I could talk to about how things are done in New York?" And I connect her with the owner of a title company, a friend of mine, and he goes through everything. And Jenny calls me after and she goes, "Matt, he was awesome. He was super helpful, but he goes, you're not going to write any VA loans." And she said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because the lawyers in New York, the real estate attorneys in New York are going to tell their people, don't use the VA. Or if they're advising the seller, they're going to say, don't accept an offer, for a VA loan." And I think in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, in the Northeast, I think that's a lot more prevalent. And when you look at the numbers, like total originations in Texas and Florida and Virginia and where there's a large military community, the numbers are much, much bigger than New York, like 30-something thousand a year to 4,000 a year. So I think the agents in those military states, they roll with it and they're used to it. Up here, one of the friction points, one of the things that, and when I think about Project 87, it's awareness. It's changing the perspective of the real estate community in places like the Northeast, where they literally steer veterans away from using a benefit that they've earned. It's about removing friction points. And I was just about to say one of the friction points, and Danny, I want to hear what you have to say about this. It's the VA appraisal. Like an appraiser goes out, when you get a VA loan, an appraiser goes out and they have to mention certain things that they wouldn't necessarily have to mention in a conventional loan. If there's, chipped or peeling paint, if there's a broken handrail. When you get a conventional mortgage, it's all about the property value and the value alone. When you get a VA loan, they are trying to protect the veteran. They don't want the veteran to purchase a home that's dilapidated or falling apart. So they add in this extra layer of protection, and it has an undesired effect of making some real estate agents and attorneys in certain areas shy away and say, no, we don't want to jump through those hoops. So I'm trying to find out, like, this is part of my mission. I'm on some level, I'm treating this like I'm a journalist and I want to go out and gather data and find information so we can figure out how often an appraisal condition comes up. I want to find out how prevalent and widespread it is for these attorneys and agents to push people away. Danny, you're in Savannah. How much do you run into something like that?
So it's always an open conversation with the realtor because, obviously you become like that person's buying team. And I love to always make sure, one, that they're aware of those are called minimum property requirements. So Yep. Just think safe, sound, and sanitary, because the VA guarantees 25% of the loan amount. They have buy-in, and they do that so that, one, they want to make sure that they're having some version of like control of the investment, but two, it's making sure that young soldier's not buying a money pit, right? So I always tell people, like, look, one, we talk about the finances of the kid, and like, are they seller concession dependent? Are they going to be able to pay their own closing costs or not? And then also, do you know about minimum property requirements? Because if it needs a new roof, the air conditioning's bad, there's black mold, water damage, termite damage, things like that. It's on a well. Like, you have to be prepared for all these additional inspections that you might not have cared before. And it does. I think it does make some realtors a little uncomfortable because it's things that they don't necessarily have to be concerned about. But That's why I try to pick and choose who I work with, either veteran or veteran friendly, so that that's already built into the repertoire of business and how they execute.
I think part of this too is dispelling some myths, and I'm not calling that a myth, the appraisal issue, but there are statistics. Here's a good one. I think this is from 2024 HMDA data. Declination rates, conventional loans, 21% of conventional mortgage applications were declined. 16.7, I'm close, I'm going off of memory, 16.7, I think FHA loans were declined in 2024, and 11.1% of VA loans were declined. And I think you just brought up the guarantee, out of those three, it's the only one that has a guarantee. The government, if somebody isn't paying their mortgage, the federal government guarantees 25% of that loan. So it makes it, everything for mortgage companies and mortgage banks is about risk. Rate is about risk. They measure everything against risk, and it lowers their risk when there's that guarantee in place, and they want to approve loans, VA loans, more easily than they might want to approve a conventional or an FHA. So I think real estate agents should know those declination rates, and I think they would be surprised. And part of my mission with Project 87, through myself and through the team when we fully roll this out, is to change the perspective of the real estate community. And it will be opening their eyes in ways like that, with real numbers, real statistics, and real solutions for dealing with, having a backup plan in case there's an appraisal that, needs a condition or something like that. So it's awareness, it's changing the perspective of the real estate community. It's reducing and removing friction points. And long-term, honestly, I would like to gather enough data. There's been so many changes over the years to the VA loan program, mostly for the better, mostly in favor of the veteran. So to me, that means they can change it again. They can make it better again. If we help figure out why utilization is so low, maybe we can force change, and work with the VA on some level. Again, long-term, but how do we advocate for veterans? How do we make the VA loan better for them so things like I just talked about don't happen?
There it is, right? There's the rub. I have a few more, Ty, so I'm going to just spin him like a top for the next 40 minutes, I think.
It's your show, baby. Go ahead.
All right. Here's another one for you, Matt.
Yeah.
It's December 31st, 2026. What did we accomplish over the year? Yeah, it's a heavy one, isn't it?
It is. I've been so, and I don't want to feel self-centered here, because, my focus has been on my job of growing this team. When I think about, that's my primary job, is to go out and grow the team. But when I do it, I try to look at it through that Project 87 scope, because the more people we have, the more that we can spread the word about it, the more veterans we can help to use their VA loan. And ultimately, I want to put in place a platform where our growing team, and by 2026, something is in place, at the end of the year, something's in place, and you guys are having these conversations, and we're, whether it's in person in real estate offices, whether it's online and social media, where we're getting the word out, the team is growing. Our new loan officers are finding their stride and getting mentored and getting better. And we're really, really starting to get to a place where we all think we can change that 87% number.
It's good. Now I got another juicy one for you. All right.
All right.
So this is something unique that we've just gotten approved, and I'm pretty proud of it. And we haven't actually started to really push what it is, but let's talk about the line of duty death benefit.
Awesome. So CrossCountry Mortgage is the only mortgage company in the country that has this. And from what we're told, it's going to remain exclusive. I just talked about my brother-in-law, Jesse, joining the team. He's the first non-veteran on our team. He's been a police officer for over 20 years, first responder. CrossCountry Mortgage, guy named Richard Chernia developed a line of duty death benefit at first it was for first responders only, policemen, fire, EMT, EMS. They have very recently opened it up to everybody in the transportation industry. And in effect, if you get a mortgage from CrossCountry Mortgage and you have and you are a first responder and you have this line of duty death benefit feature attached to your mortgage, if you were to pass in the line of duty, CrossCountry will cancel up to $525,000 of your mortgage debt. Obviously, that's not going to help the person that passed away, but it's an insurance policy for the family because the family's still responsible for that debt. And they're, if that wasn't in place, there might be an estate sale, or they might lose their house. So we're all in sales, and to find out that you have something that you can offer that is something like that nobody else can, it's difficult not to get super excited about having that in your back pocket and being able to go out and offer that. So, Jesse wanted to do this as he was retiring, but when I talked to him about the line of duty death benefit, his head started spinning and thought about, he was thinking about how much easier the conversations he was going to have with his network.
So, I'm pretty proud of that, and we haven't even pushed it. My brother-in-laws are retired NYPD guys. So I want to ask this because I'm sure people are like, well, that sounds super expensive. What does that cost to the customer? And is there a way to add that to a current loan with CrossCountry Mortgage?
So it costs the customer $0.
Say that again. Say that again.
It costs the customer $0. So
$0, mic drop, throw it against the wall, $0.
Yep. I think that, whoever writes the loan, their branch takes a little hit. It's an insurance policy. But the customer, $0. One other thing I want to bring up about the line of duty death benefit, Danny, is, I don't know if you remember when we were in Cleveland, I asked Ron, the owner of the company, hey, is there any chance that you would ever make this available to active duty members of the military? And I didn't hear, he said, that's going to take a while. Let me ask. And then I found out that the person that started this program, Richard Chernia, who I just mentioned, he's a New York guy. I reached out to him. We had a super nice conversation. And I asked him directly. He goes, oh, you must be the one that asked that question. And he goes, believe it or not, I think we're getting close. And he went out of his way to point out that they'll never offer it in a situation where somebody dies in combat. It's too risky. But if you're active duty members of the an active duty member of the military, and if you were to pass away from a heart attack or stroke, we're not there yet. I want to make sure that everybody knows that we're getting close to adding active duty members of the military who often hold a stressful job, and certainly stroke or heart attack, is brought on in many instances by stress. If we're able to offer that to the active duty military community, we're the only mortgage company in the country that can do that. And now we have a team of veterans who's going out and trying to teach the military community to use their VA loan to change their life. It's unstoppable if they put something like that in place. I mean, can you imagine, Danny? I don't know if most of your clients are veterans or if they're active duty, but you'd go out of your way to talk to active duty if
oh my
that
gosh,
was in place.
This would be insane. So the other aspect is, this is something that I don't know, and that's truly I'm asking, is there a way, because I literally just closed a loan for a police officer before this was announced. Is there a way to add that on after the fact?
I don't know if you can, you certainly can add it through a refinance. I don't know if you can add it after the fact. It's a good question to ask. We did ask about, through a refi. But I don't know if you can add it after the fact.
Okay. I'm going to need you to find that one out and apply a little pressure, because that seems like a sweet add-on if we could do it.
By the way, like I said, the transportation industry too. And when he said that, I was like, okay, he said city school buses, school bus drivers at first. And I was like, all right, that's something. But then he's like, UPS, FedEx, DHS, if you work for the train, Metro North in New York, if you work for the train station, you're a conductor. If you're in the transportation industry, we have the benefit for them as well.
Amazing. So now I'm just going to keep just pinging you, because I like it, spinning you like a top. So let's talk about the team again. All right. So, because I'm sure people are curious, who exactly do you think is the ideal person to potentially join our team, and how would they get in touch to potentially apply?
Yep. So I went to my first ever military career fair at up in Foxborough at the Gillette Stadium, maybe 2 weeks ago. And there were about 250 people that walked through. And I think I mentioned this before, but I am looking, this is Patton telling me too. He's like, try to make sure they're a good person, make sure that they're, their heart's in this. But other than that, do they have a network? And it's not us saying it. We look, for the most part, this is a super high upside job. You can make a lot of money doing it, but it's also, for all intents and purposes, it's 100% commission. So ideally, we find somebody that has a tie to the military community, is a good person, and even like if you're retired and you have guaranteed income, super helpful. If you have a service-connected disability and you have guaranteed income, super helpful. If you're a military spouse and your spouse has guaranteed income, super helpful, because you get a little bit more runway. I just wrote a curriculum for the SkillBridge program. We just got approved like 10 days ago for SkillBridge. And I'm so excited about it, because if you're in the military and you're not, 20 years, you're 6 years, 8 years, and you're about to transition out, you're not going to get a pension like that. You can go into SkillBridge, and in your last 6 months in the military, they'll let you go and work for a civilian company like ours that has been approved. Their curriculum's been approved. Basically, the military pays you, gives you your military benefits, and teach it and let you go and be taught by some company in some industry to help you transition into civilian life. So I love it, because it gives people that don't necessarily have that guaranteed source of income, it gives them 6 months of runway to understand the position, understand the little nuances, the administrative part of the job. And once the 6 months comes and goes, you could sort of hit the ground running on the sales side, getting the word out, letting people know what you're doing, letting people know that, your mission to change the 87%. So yeah, it's a good person. It's a connection to a military network of some kind. And if you have a little runway, if you have some guaranteed income and you have some time to work up to it. Now, I'm going to say this, I'm going to give some numbers just because I'm also a recruiter. I want people to understand the upside here. On average, a mortgage loan officer that specializes in VA is probably making like 120 basis points. It's 1.2% of the loan amount. So if you write, when I was up at the career fair, I looked up the average loan size for a VA mortgage. It's $537,000 in Massachusetts, where I was. So it's like, if you write one loan a month, $537,000 loan, you're making more than $6,000, like $6,400, something like that. If you write $10 million worth of loans, like 1.5 loans a month, you're making $120,000. If you write 3 loans a month, you're making over $200,000. There's people, I mean, I'll let people do the math. I know Patton in 2024 closed $187 million in VA loans. So hefty commission for our fearless leader.
It is a little shocking what's possible, and to have just the true purpose of, and that's for me. Like, if it was just about the money, I would not want to do this job.
Yeah,
that's just not my personality.
Yep.
But you give that extra bang with the ability to go and help people and guide people. Like, I'm very blunt. I don't really have a filter. I'm working on, learning how to talk to, other people. But hell, I was in the military for 27 years. I didn't have to give a shit about what your emotions were, right? We had a mission. Shut up. Let's go. You know what I mean? But, it's interesting. You talk about, like the military spouse. And I think, man, that is something, because you have a couple of, like, really, for me, ideal recruits. A guy with retirement and disability. He's got a good chunk of change coming to him. He's probably not starving. He can have a different approach to the business, as long as he doesn't, like, go out and start buying G-Wagons and beach houses, right? And self-induce, financial stress. And the military spouse, man, if you can get into the family readiness groups, where it's, when whoever the soldier is out doing the work and all that stuff, it's traditionally the spouse that is staying at home is running the house. That's the one that's running and paying the bills. That's where the education goes crazy, because you get them excited about it. That is an army of emotionally driven people that will go crazy.
Yep.
All right. So there's that. So we've talked about that. All right. We already talked about to apply. What else would you like to talk about about the entire business? Because I know I've been rambling and I've been paying it, but now I'm going to go. Now you can go free reign.
Yeah, I know Ty said that there'd be a chance to sort of shout out some other maybe veteran organizations, and I do want to do that. Veterans Inc. for a very, very specific reason. My roommate in the Air Force, 1993, 1994, his name's Manny. I call him JR, goes by Manny now. His dad was Manny, so he's a junior. He works at Veterans Inc. Air Force veteran, works at Veterans Inc., has a huge network of veterans. There's like 100,000 members of Veterans Inc. He has a master's in accounting, great with numbers. And I'm like, oh my God, he'd be an amazing candidate. He'd be awesome at this job. We stay in touch haphazardly. We've been in touch a lot in the last 6 months because of this. I reach out, I tell him what I'm doing, and he's like super excited. He's like, I want to do it. I want to join the team. I want to do that. I want to get my license, become an originator. And he signs up for Alan, our head trainer's class. He does the first day, and he calls me up, Danny, and he's like, after the first day, and he goes, Matt, I can't do it. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? He goes, I can't. He's like, I work at Veterans Inc. I don't make, he's not making a ton of money. He's like, I've done really well my entire career. Don't need the money anymore. I come to work here every day, and it is my job to teach veterans about benefits that they have access to, that they have no idea that they have access to. And these benefits can absolutely positively change their lives. And when I show them that, the feeling that I get is irreplaceable. And I've never, ever had a job like this before, and I just can't walk away from it. And I took a step back, and I was like, my mind was blown. And there's no way you can argue with that. I wasn't even about to try to convince him otherwise. But when we hung up, I said, damn, that's the kind of impact that I want to make. That's what I want to do. And I got to thinking, we do every single day deal with an underutilized benefit, one of the most powerful benefits that veterans are given, and nobody's using it. And we as a team have the ability to go out and change that and on some level do what Manny's doing at Veterans Inc. So I love what he's doing. He lives in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's where Veterans Inc. is. And when I went to that job fair up at Gillette, he was there. And, you know, I hadn't seen him in 6 years. I think we figured it was, and he was doing his thing and I was doing my thing, and they're so parallel. And, you know, it was 33 years ago that I was in the Air Force with him. And, you know, we were brought together in this weird cosmic way, sort of like me getting a restaurant in West Point and meeting Pat in that way. You know, it's maybe not a coincidence.
Yeah, I think not. It's crazy how the universe brings people together. I've talked about on the show about you know, not necessarily recommending companies, but I can recommend people. And Matt Duhan told me, you know, I've met Pat and Gabe. We had him on the show. I've had Danny Archer on the show, and you know, Matt Duhan's one of my favorite people in the world, and he vouched for you. So, man, just getting to know you, hearing about this, you got an amazing story. But it is time to have a little bit of fun and put you in the hot seat.
Oh, the hot seat.
All right, it's just me and you. So it's me and you here, and I don't have anybody to do this, so it might be a little awkward. But I'm going to drop Danny down. But Danny, don't leave. We'll get this started here in just a second.
Okay.
Questions. So the first thing that comes to your brain, kind of hit and miss questions here, and let us know a little bit more about you. So in your travels of the world, what is the most unique place on earth that you've ever visited?
The first place that pops to mind is I think Lake Tahoe is the most Lake Tahoe in the summertime is the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Yeah, Lake Tahoe, that's beautiful. I actually did a retreat with some veteran buddies of mine, and we got a little Airbnb in Lake Tahoe on the, I guess we were in the Nevada side. We went back and forth to California. It's beautiful. That's a great answer. All right, what's your favorite genre of music?
I'm probably a classic rock, 70s, 80s. I love 90s rock. I was a grunge guy back then, but yeah, rock and roll.
Okay, top 3 bands of all time. No particular order, just top 3 of your favorite bands of all time.
My favorite. I'm a big fan of the Black Keys. I'm a big fan of Kings of Leon. I'm a big fan. I mean, going way back, I'm a big fan of Pearl Jam, and I'm going to throw a non-rock and roll in there. I'll give you a little rap. Early '90s, huge Tribe Called Quest fan.
Oh, Tribe Called Quest, absolutely love it. All right, if you had a 1-hour conversation with one person in history, who would it be? What would you cover?
Oh man, not Danny Archer.
Not Danny Archer.
No, Danny Archer. I don't know. Danny Archer. He's interesting. He started an equine farm for veterans with PTSD. Danny Archer.
Hell yeah. Like, I don't know if for the audience, you can go back and check Danny Archer's episode out. I think he was number 136. Some of the stories he was telling, especially, trying to get through a firefight with one of those the big Wendy's. Like, I'm sitting here at a desk and I'm holding the desk as he's telling the story. So go back and check that out. 136. I'll accept that answer. Normally we wouldn't accept it. Danny Archer's a fucking exceptional human being, so we'll accept that. All right, what is the biggest advice you can give right now for people that are getting out of the military?
Buy a house as early as you possibly can. My nephew is 19 years, no, he's 20 years old. He's in Arkansas right now. in flight school. And I'm like, Casey, you need to buy a house with your VA loan as soon as possible because you're 20 years old. You should have 3 or 4 houses by the time you're 30 years old, if not more. Use your VA loan when you're young. Buy a house. It will change your future.
Absolutely, because it's the biggest purchase you're ever going to have, and it may be scary and daunting, but having that residual worth and generational wealth that you can build with the VA loan.
Homeowners are 43 times wealthier than renters in the United States of America.
Absolutely, that's the exact stat I wanted you. I've heard that stat before. That's amazing. All right, I don't ask many people this one because most people are like, "What the fuck are you asking me?" But I know you can wax poetic about this. If you had a chance to either fix your past mistakes or see your future, which one would you choose?
I think it's more powerful to use hindsight and go back and change past mistakes because ultimately it would change your future for the better in theory. And I don't want to know my future. I want to see how it plays out. It's fun that way.
Absolutely. Good answer. What drives you in life these days?
When I got out of the mortgage industry for for a year or two almost, I would say I was in a not so great place. And I didn't have the will to work like I once did. It's all back. I have 2 daughters. My oldest is about to graduate college in 3 or 4 weeks. My youngest just moved to Florida. She's 19, 22 and 19. I want to be great for them. I'm in a wonderful new relationship now. I want to that to be amazing. I just want to make a really great positive impact on my family, on the people in my lives, and also, like I said before, having a job and a role on this team and be able to, you said if I can go back and change the past, this is me changing the past a little bit. I want to be able to help people that were in my shoes way back when and guide them to a better future.
Absolutely. You've described perfectly what happiness looks like to you personally, but what does happiness look like to you professionally?
Growing this team, changing 87%, increasing utilization to a level that nobody thinks we can do. And making that happen for veterans in the military community.
I don't think I've heard a better answer. I love that answer. Just because I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's amazing to me. All right. So here's the big question. Who's the greatest of all time? Prince or Michael Jackson?
Ooh. I'll go Prince.
Okay, and why Prince?
I mean, if we're just talking about musically, it's probably pretty close. But if you throw in all the other outside stuff that you don't know if it's true or if it's not true, I'm going Prince. if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's a certain mystique to Prince. Here, I got a video for you. So this is episode 147. So it's now 52-47. Prince is starting to pull back away. It got real close. I think when Danny was on, it was down to like 2. But Prince has built that lead, well-deserved lead.
What did Danny say?
I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look at what Danny said. Let me see if I got it written down here. Danny Archer. He said Michael Jackson.
Huh.
And at that point, I guess, it was a big lead too. But Michael Jackson. All right, last question for the TTP hot seat. What can we do as a podcast to get better?
get those other guys to your co-host to be on with you.
Yeah, fuck them for missing. I called them out of ranks at the beginning. That's 2 weeks in a row for Matt. First week for Al, but yeah, there'll be some non-judicial punishment going down for sure. Well, you've graduated out of the hot seat. I appreciate your answers. Appreciate your time. Let's get Danny back in here.
I felt like I was in the back, and I was writing a contract. Like, what did they pick? Like, I did pretty good with the questions. Like, that music's badass, by the way. I felt like there was going to be like goblins or trolls running over the.
Yeah, sometimes it gets intense. Like I've had people curse at me for even asking them the question about Michael Jackson and Prince. You know, some people, I ask them the simple questions like, "What's the most important value, loyalty, duty, respect, or whatever?" And they're like, "I ain't answering that question. Fuck that question. I ain't in the military anymore." Okay,
you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
But okay, Matt Jablonski, man, you were as advertised. I appreciate you coming on the show very much. Before we get you and Danny Archer out of here, is there anybody else you want to shout out personally, not just professionally?
My mom is she's going to be fine, but she's having a little thing going. Hey, Mom, if you're watching, good luck.
Appreciate it. And Danny, you want to shout out the team one more time before we get you out of here?
Sure, but I will need to tell his mom. I'm sorry. I probably dropped the F-bomb at least twice. Yeah, no. First, I'd like to shout out the Equine Valor Project. If you haven't ever looked at it, go to www.equinevalorproject.com. That's a horse program here just outside of Savannah and Richmond Hill, Georgia. There's an 8-minute video on the top, Origin of EVP. Watch that. Some exciting stuff. We just got our own farm this year, and it's going to be awesome. And then obviously the Victor Alpha Group. So band of brothers and sisters trying to make things happen and take care of veterans across the United States.
Well, Danny.
And my mom. Oh, sure, I'll throw my mom in there too. Like,
absolutely can't forget Mom.
No, first of all, I'm going to say my wife. That's what's up.
Oh, yeah, better do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not my wife. She's the foundation. She keeps me going, keeps me straight. Because I'm a little bit of a crazy bear sometimes.
Yeah, I got that from the last interview. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can go see Danny Archer's episode 136. And Matt Jablonski, I appreciate you so much coming on the show, giving us your time. And I appreciate the extensive and comprehensive knowledge. We've put the websites on the screen for CrossCountry Mortgage with the Victor Alpha Group and also the Equine Valor Project. I love both of these. I definitely endorse both of these. Go ahead, Danny.
No, that's it. I was just pointing to the crowd. Like, I don't know. I move my hands a lot. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I appreciate it.
I was trying to pick your nose.
Yeah, absolutely. And big shout out to Veterans Inc. I didn't know about that organization until today, but like I said, it's always learning new modalities to get some shit done as a veteran. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to drop you down. Stay around there for a second. I'm going to close out the show, and then I'll be right with you in the green room. All right, Matt Jablonski and Danny Archer. It's weird doing the show alone, not having the guys with me. I'm usually just doing the production. But, appreciate everyone watching tonight. Future guests, next week we have a Navy veteran. Elizabeth Johnson's going to come on. We're going to talk about being a Navy veteran, of course, and the Honor Her Foundation of Northwest Florida. She's on the board. For Al Hero, Matt Johnson, I'm Ty Cobb. We appreciate you watching the show. Be sure, and like Al says, reach out and talk to that person. You know, I was looking for Danny Archer's phone number in my phone, and I came across one of my battalion commanders. I hadn't talked to him in a decade. It's really good to sit there and wax poetic. Call that person that you've been thinking about, or if they pop into your brain, just give them a call, see what's going on. We appreciate you. We're here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Triple Threat Vet Podcast. A lot of great stuff coming up. We'll talk to you next week.
If you or someone you know is in crisis, contact the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. Then press 1.